Good evening, and thank you for joining our transatlantic conversation. I'm delighted to welcome two experts in the area of professional services and the relationship between clients and advisors. Susan Hackett, who is the owner of an excellent organization called Legal Executive Leadership.
Thank you.
And on my other phone, Andy Lopata, who is described by many people as many things, but one of the quotes that is that he is one of Europe's leading business networking strategists and indeed a master of networking. So I think it's going to be very fascinating to hear what our two experts have to say, and I will of course add my own thoughts as we go along. I'm Richard Chaplin from the Managing Partners Forum, and have been sitting in this space for about 25 years now, having previously worked for KPMG in a fee earning capacity. So what we're really looking at here, I think, is the relationship between the client on the one hand and the advisor on the other. And in particular, how you get to the point of not so much the client relationship, but the pre-client, the target, the whole process by which referrals are made. And how cross referrals work, if they do, how intermediaries are effective, if they are, and possibly some of the mistakes or some of the sins that people might make in this space. I'd like to start by asking Andy just to kind of give us his take on what he thinks a referral actually is and why he thinks it's important.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, that's a good question to start with, because it's something that is so misunderstood, and just misunderstanding what we're looking for in terms of referrals just means so much potential business is left on the table untapped by firms, and that can amount to millions of dollars or pounds every year. So let's understand exactly what we're looking for. For me, a referral is a situation where someone who may have need of your services is aware that that need exists. They are aware of you as the potential solution provider. And most importantly, they are expecting to hear from you. They want to hear from you. They're interested in hearing from you, and they want to give you their time. That's so important because it changes the whole dynamic of a conversation. If you get in front of a prospect who is not really ready to listen, is not receptive, then you've got a real slog to try and convince people that you're the right person. If an intermediary, someone they trust and respect, has put you forward as the ideal person to solve a problem that they know they have, they're listening. Money doesn't come into it. Time doesn't come into it. All those other challenges that come up in the sales process are diminished quite extensively because of that trusted introduction. So that's what we're looking for when we talk about referral.
And just picking up those 3 points, that the need exists, that there is an awareness of it, and they're waiting to hear from you. Where do you find the biggest challenge lies for most people? Which of those 3?
I think we're too quick to try and just get a name and a number, and we're not patient enough to wait for the right opportunity for our champion, as I call them, to have the conversation. Not pre-sell, I don't like that term because they're not selling on your behalf, but to qualify the conversation, to get them interested, and to actually create the scenario where they're expecting your call and they're ready. And I think we shortcut that process because we're so keen to get in front of people, and patience pays off.
But does that suggest that when you are dealing with intermediaries as a professional firm, you need to be briefing them on your expectations of what that intermediary should and could be doing for you?
Oh, definitely. Your job with working with any intermediary, and for me, when I use the term champion, I mean intermediaries within the professional services sector, perhaps, but also a champion can come from anywhere. It can be family, friends, social contacts of staff, of partners. It could be golfing contacts. It could be community contacts. It could be much wider sphere. But your job, whomever that intermediary is to make their life as easy as possible in giving you the best possible introduction. And that means putting some thought into what that looks like. And in my experience, many advisors don't put the time and effort into thinking about how to set up the best introductions for themselves.
Yeah, and I'd jump in here if it's okay, Richard, to say that I
Please do.
This is an especially difficult problem within the legal profession because so many lawyers think it may be somehow kind of unprofessional to be touting their expertise or to be trying to define what their service is. I mean, they may be able to say, I'm a great environmental lawyer, or I really am the expert in this kind of M&A or transactional work, but they're very loath to say, and here are the 43 successes I've had, or here are the ways that I could help you, whether that's an issue of they think that it's a breach of confidentiality to talk about previous matters, or whether they think it's somehow kind of unseemly for professionals to have to sell themselves as if, you know, I mean, I can remember days when I first started practicing, the reputation of the firm or the reputation of the lawyer was supposed to speak for itself. You were never supposed to be in that kind of grimy position of, I don't know, advertising. And clearly referrals are not about advertising, but they are about a consistent marketing strategy of making sure that you're known at the right place to the right people at the right time. And most lawyers don't really give much thought to that. And frankly, most marketing departments within law firms don't give a lot of thought to it either. They organize programs where people can go and get education, or cocktails where they can meet folks generally, but they haven't really spent time with their counsel saying, how do you plant these kinds of messages or information so that when that opportunity, which is often kind of a drive-by opportunity, you know, it perks up, that someone who could give you that referral is equipped to know what to say in order to make the best pitch for you.
And that's absolutely right. And I would agree with you that in my experience as well, this is probably a bigger problem for lawyers than, say, accountants, and certainly more so than the financial advice field, you know, the more advisory field on that side, because I think lawyers have always felt, even more than the other areas of professional services, that they can't advertise. It is still a problem, particularly big accountancy firms. There's still more focus on technical training than referral strategy. And then when people get to the position where they have to generate business, they're told, go out and network, and not given any...
Whatever that means, yeah.
They'll go and dish out business cards and elevator pitches and hope that does the trick.
Yeah.
I think that you're absolutely right that referrals are not advertising in the sense of you going out and advertising yourself. The power is other people are advertising you.
Right.
The key in what I said is that your job is to make it as easy as possible for people to do that. And that implies some proactivity on your part. Right. Now, in the past, particularly when business was really good, the feeling is, well, if we do a good job, people will talk about us. Well, if you do a good job, people might pay you. You have no right to expect anything beyond that, because you provide a service, people pay for that service. To expect them to do any more than that unrequested is simply naive. So there needs to be some proactivity, and that means you have to dirty your hands a little bit, but you still get to a position where you're not touting for business, other people are recommending you. But make that happen.
Well, and to that point, go ahead, Richard, you're up.
I was just thinking, I always take the view there's no such thing as a firm, only people. And I'm interested to explore who possibly within the firm has responsibility for getting to a better place. And is this something that you mentioned, the marketing team? They may not feel they have the authority to encourage fee earners to do certain things. Is it left to the individual fee earner to say, please go on this referral training program so you can manage your referral relationships better? Or is it something where the leadership of the firm needs to put something more structured in place, perhaps around agreeing who the key people are that you should be, who are your key intermediaries, who are the key people within the firm, who are the right people to be ensuring that other people in the firm know what's going on for a particular division? I mean, to what extent does it require structure in order for it to be effective?
Yeah, well, you know, my take is that the answer to that question is yes. Everything, right? All of the above. I would suggest that the first thing that lawyers and firms need to think about is that there are probably two strategies they're going to have to deploy, which will help make it clearer who's responsible and what kinds of strategies might work. The first set of strategies are strategies that sell the firm. Are you actually interested in selling the brand of the firm and the teams of lawyers who solve larger scale problems using, a practice group or a collaborative group? Or are you interested in selling, me, right? The individual lawyer who is looking to either up their book of business or to expand into new client marketplaces or whatever. And there would obviously be different kinds of strategies, some complementary and some maybe even repetitive. But I would suggest in this marketplace, where it used to be quite obvious that the lawyer was independently responsible for their own marketing and that the firm's marketing would probably be done by folks at the business end of the firm in the marketing or business development departments, that it's a little bit more mixed now. I think that one of the longest standing mantras in legal practice from the client's perspective, which is where I come from on the marketplace, is that I hire the lawyer and not the firm. And so certainly most clients are extremely interested in the person in whom they are going to establish this trusted relationship and with whom they will be dealing with on a daily basis. So the kinds of things you would do to develop your marketing brand, if you will, in order to engender that kind of comfort are one thing that may be separate from how the firm touts its expertise as the leading firm in such and such a marketplace. But I would suggest to you that that mantra is changing. And the reason it's changing is that it's no longer enough for most clients who are looking for something beyond simply legal services, which are, unfortunately for lawyers in today's market, fungible. There are so many people who can provide great quality legal services that what most clients are looking for is that extra stuff. Can you do it a certain way? Can you charge a certain kind of fee structure? Can you develop a team to respond in a different way? Can you project and process manage? All these kinds of things that have to do with the team. More and more clients who used to say, I hire the lawyer and not the firm, are saying, I hire the lawyer, but only if they work at a firm that will support them in delivering the services in the way that I want them to be delivered. It's not so much about reputation anymore as it is about how you'll get the work done. And that's not something that individual lawyers do by themselves, and clients are pretty darn aware of that these days.
Yeah, I'm going back to Andy's 3 points at the beginning, his definition, if you like. The first one, if you recall, was that the need exists. The second, that they're aware of you. We're saying, what's you in that sentence in a way? Is it the individual? Is it the team? Is it what the firm stands for, its reputation? And it's a mix, isn't it, I sense?
It's a mix of all of those things.
Would you agree with that, Andy, that there's sort of something in that area that we can add? Or do you think we possibly look a little bit more about maybe some of the how it is that people ensure that the intermediary, the referral agent, makes sure that the client definitely wants to hear from you and knows enough about you?
You're absolutely right. It is a mix of all of those areas. You know, when I talk about trust, which is at the heart of any referral, people need trust in the firm. They need trust in the expertise and the services that are provided by that firm. And they need the trust in the individuals that they're going to be dealing with. That's why the answer to your original question about who's responsible, it can't lie solely with the marketing department because they're not the service provider. That's not who the trust is building. And if it's the business development or the marketing team who are going out to source referrals, then they cannot be referred as individuals because that's where trust is built. It's on an individual basis. What the business development or marketing team can do is create the collateral and the environment and work with the senior management team to also part answer that question to create the culture within the firm of referrals. But ultimately it comes down to the individuals who are going to be delivering. You know, I've always struggled to understand firms that have split account management, account delivery, and business development, and then think that their business development team can lead a referral strategy. because although I teach that referrals don't solely come from clients, they are a key source. And it's your account management or your delivery team that have access to those clients. If they're not incentivized, if they're not encouraged, if they're not motivated to refer, if that's someone else's job, they won't do it. A few years ago, I ran some training sessions for a currencies exchange company. And I said I wanted the whole team. I wanted everyone to come on the different workshops. And so we had PAs on there. We had directors who weren't responsible for business development, as well as a sales team. And interestingly, the finance director, someone who you would think would have awareness of and a vested interest in new business coming into the firm, he came on to one of the workshops, and in the 2 or 3 weeks following, he referred 7 times.
Wow.
He had never referred any business before because it wasn't his job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that where the senior leadership team come in is to create a culture of referrals, a culture where everyone is, I don't like using the word incentivize because there are different ways to incentivize people to refer, not always financial, sometimes they are, but when I use the word incentivize, that's what we think. But let's use the word inspired to refer. And if you create a culture where everyone buys into that, then you get so much more from it.
Yeah, the word that I think might be worth introducing as well is confidence, because certainly if I think about the typical finance director, they're very happy in their agenda and where they work, and they obviously do a good job, but probably the only time they ever talk to a client is to chase somebody who hasn't paid a bill, and which is a great way to develop a relationship. It's not. But here you have a situation where they probably aren't aware of actually the fact you know somebody could be of relevance to somebody else. It's just not a mindset that your typical finance person will have, and give them the confidence. They'll always feel slightly, well, if I give them some sort of recommendation or something, and then this person then ignores it or treats me as, well, you know perfectly well, stop wasting my time over this. It's just not a place you want to go. So I think your culture has to be very supportive, very inclusive, and allow people to make intelligent mistakes, and to accept that just because you think somebody might be a good referral person doesn't mean to everybody else will, and vice versa.
And that's where your business development or marketing team play that central role, providing the collateral that gives that confidence, being the hub that helps direct referrals if necessary. I mean, I think what happens a lot, particularly the bigger firms get, is if people recognize an opportunity to refer a different department, if they're even got that radar on, they don't necessarily have the relationships with that department to know where to send it. And to create that central hub which can help encourage people to cross-refer and make it easy for them to do so. And importantly, seek and give feedback on how that referral is going, because that's what really gives confidence that you know people will be looked after. Then you're going to see a lot more activity of that type.
I think the other thing you can think about doing is, if you're thinking about your external intermediaries, bankers, is to find, let's call them an ambassador, but find somebody at that external organization who is comfortable to act as your point person, and then direct your query to whoever's the right person within their organization. So have that sort of point-to-point relationship where you're dealing with an external source, where you know each other, you work together, etc. But that doesn't mean to say you know everybody there, or indeed you know the right people for a particular purpose.
Yeah, I think one of the other difficulties is how to make that ask when you're first going out to talk to people about standing up for you and putting their name behind your name. And, I go back to something that I was taught early on when I first started working as a board member for a number of nonprofits, and I was told to go out and help them raise money. And one of the very smart people who was a development person for that charity had explained to me that when you go out to ask people for advice, you get money. If you go out to ask people for money, you get advice. And so one of the things I'd suggest is that as you're thinking about your pitch to go out to someone who you would like to act as a referral for you, that if you give them an opportunity to give you advice on how you might go about getting their endorsement in front of this group that you would very much like to meet, or something similar that you might end up getting the money more in a more likely way than if you went out and said, hey, I really want to generate this client and I need you to do this, at which point you will probably get advice on how you might be more effective some other way. So I think your approach and how you look at not only triggering those people to want to help you, but also the method of your ask, what it is that you're looking for people to do. Let them warm to the idea and suggest the idea that they could make that introduction, that they could provide their services. So, you may have developed your spiel, what it is that you want people to know about you. But if you send that as an attachment on an email saying, hey, Bob, can you send this on to Sally because I'd really like to meet her, you're going to get a cooler reception.
Yeah.
Than you would if you were a little bit more in the I'm seeking your advice mode.
Yeah, it comes like a LinkedIn introduction then, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a cold world.
It also depends on the level of your relationship with that champion. So I get my clients to actually score their top champions on willingness to refer. So they have a scale 1 to 10, and so it's willingness to refer, understanding, and opportunity to refer. Now, if someone is 10 across the board, you can do that, but then you create the right introduction. So it's not like a LinkedIn introductions; it's in their words, it's their approach. So I might send them an email, but I say put this in your words, so it comes from them.
But that's after they've agreed to help you too. And I guess what I'm saying is it's that first conversation that you really have to make sure that you're understanding everyone in this process and what it is that they will be asked to do. So I agree, giving them the easiest way for them to activate once they've agreed to get there. Absolutely give them some text to put in their words. But you have to make sure that person's comfortable. And there are an increasing number of companies, for instance, out there that have actual policies against people being allowed to make referrals or other kinds of recommendations. It started an employment policy when you asked about the past employee, and it's kind of traversed in some companies into a much larger kind of a thing. At least that's the case here in the US. I run into people, especially in private companies, where there's a general bar on folks putting their name behind someone who's in a vendor relationship. It's seen as a potential conflict of interest. So you do have to be kind of careful about what you're asking and asking them how to approach this.
There is another route that I've come across which actually works quite well, which is, and where the marketing team can be helpful, which is to organize joint events with a particular intermediary or vendor, and both sides invite their clients down. And the advantage of that is that if you do it in a smart way, you will actually get to the point where your fee earner will be not asked to send an email to somebody with an attachment, but be told you'll be meeting X, Y, and Z at this event. Please make sure you come down and your tie is straight or whatever. And that actually gives the marketing people the opportunity to then touch base with their equivalents at the vendor marketing team, which is no bad thing as well, because they can share ideas. And they don't have usually the same sort of conflict issues that the frontline people do. Nobody really cares about marketing people. They don't count in the equation. And I think what you then find then is there's a soft way in, as long as you obviously choose the right people and the right topic and the right speaker and the rest. But I have actually seen that work quite well as a sort of a way of people not necessarily then having to, what should we say, give such a strong recommendation, but
it's more organic.
Inviting your clients down, and those clients then talk to their clients and say, oh, what a great organization that is. And then your client is then doing the selling for you, which is even better.
Definitely. There was an article in Harvard Business Review recently where they called that double dating. And it can actually work on a smaller basis as well, where you get, you take 4 or 8 tickets for something and you each bring people that would be of interest to the others. Again, I think that is a very valid approach, and it's an effective approach. Nothing beats a pure referral, where I say to you, Richard, look, you're trying to achieve this. Susan's the person you need to speak to. Would you like me to introduce you? Where it's teed up in that way, and that's what firms should be focused on and should be strategic about.
And I would throw in an unsolicited pitch here. You know, I think it's traditional for lawyers to maybe not be so far as disrespect marketing and business development professionals in their firm, but they certainly have not taken very much advantage of them. And many of them are skeptical about whether they could ever be of service in such a highfalutin profession as ours. And I think that's a huge mistake. I would have been more likely to buy into some of that theory 5-10 years ago, when a lot of the people who were in marketing functions in firms didn't necessarily have an awful lot of qualification or experience. They might have graduated into that post and no one knew what they were supposed to do, and so on and so forth. But this is now a much different segment of the profession, and lawyers are not only missing out, but they're taking a huge risk by not thinking about more aggressive ways that they can take advantage of marketing and business development services provided within their firm by people who actually do have some expertise in this, who are able to drive data to help them understand which prospects might be most interested in these kinds of services, or which people have been purchasing these kinds of services from which kinds of firms, or simply help in putting together those documents, those pitches, those descriptions. That doesn't mean they take over the relationship. It doesn't mean that you simply send the responsibility over to them. That's not a good strategy either. But avoiding them or not using them with this kind of attitude of I know best how to sell myself is probably a losing solution right now in today's marketplace.
Particularly when you're dealing with team-based situations where it isn't about the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the big mistakes that advisors make is a lack of clarity in who they want to be referred to. So they'll say anyone who needs my services, and what I always teach is that anyone gets you no one.
Yeah.
Paint a picture in your champions' minds. And so that data that you were talking about, that market knowledge that the BD marketing team can deliver, could make all the difference.
Exactly.
Well, I think we're sort of getting to a good point here. We've explored the universe and back again. I think we've thought about what referrals are, that the need exists, that people are aware of you, and perhaps most importantly of all, they want to hear from you. So please make sure you make that call. And we've looked at some of the strategies that different firms are adopting. We've looked at that it can't be something that's left to the individual to do on their own. It's got to be a structured responsibility of the leadership team in different ways, that the marketing team, again, have a key responsibility. I'd like to thank Andy and Susan for their words of wisdom. And hopefully we'll try and work out a way to do this again sometime.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
It would be a pleasure. Thank you all.